Warm weather has creeped in our neck of the woods. Is your boat ready to hit the water? If it is, that's great. The question is your boat trailer ready to hit the road to get that boat to the water? Today we're going to focus specifically on the actuator that supplies the brake system. We're going to go through all the ins and outs of that, hopefully answer some questions and get into it. If you're like many, you've had your boat in winter storage all winter long, and now that the weather has warmed up a little bit, it's time to hit the lake. Many times we'll put off our maintenance. That's okay, we're all guilty of it. I'm as guilty as anybody. But we have this trailer here. It just turned 19 years old, and a lot of the products on here are original to it. Now, it has had maintenance. It's not been neglected. I performed maintenance on this over the years, but a few of the components need to have a major maintenance. They need to be looked at just to make sure they're still roadworthy in order to get your boat to the lake. So today we're going to focus on the brake actuator. We're going to talk about the functionality of it. We're going to show how to disassemble it. We're going to show some of the tools, what to look for, and see if it needs any of the components replaced in it or if it needs a complete actuator. We're going to talk about other stuff on this trailer too, but just the focus for the day is the actuating system to make sure that your brakes are in good working order so that you can stop this unit when headed to the water. So the actuator we have today is a very common actuator. You may have it set up like this. You may also have a swing away system for the boat trailers that need to be in a confined garage space or something. But the A60 UFP actuator is one of the most common out there. So I thought this would be a good candidate to go over. There's some other types of actuators out there. A lot of the functionality is the same, but if you have something different than the A60, you may need to do a little more research before you do a tear down and inspection to make sure you know what you're doing, to make sure that you can still get parts for it. There are some parts that are unavailable anymore. Once we tear this down, I'll go through some of the parts in it. We're going to kind of talk about the functionality first, then we're going to do a full disassembly and an inspection. So the first thing to note, it does have a coupler on it. But if you were to go to a parts house and you needed this is actually called the actuator, which has a 2-inch ball on the coupler. It's all integrated. This outer piece here that is painted to match the boat trailer, this would come as a complete piece. This slides out, this gets welded on, and then your internals go in. That being said, if you ever have to replace this, you can just buy the internal components so you don't have to cut this off of the trailer unless it were damaged in an accident or something like that. Underneath this plastic cover, and I've done like any good YouTuber would do, I've made sure this lid comes off easy so there's no struggle on camera. It actually did come off pretty easy. These caps are bad about getting brittle and flying off, so if yours is missing, I'd recommend to replace that. Just keep some of the junk out. Underneath it, it still has the original plug because it still has some of the original paint on top of the reservoir plug for the master cylinder. I'm gonna see if we can pop that out. May have to get a screwdriver. Oh, nope. So this is where your DOT3 brake fluid would go. One thing you want to look for instantly in here to see if you have fluid. If there is no fluid present, then you have a leak somewhere. You could have some evaporation, but generally if it is bone dry, then it is leaked out somewhere. The other thing you would look for would be rust if you have a steel or a cast master cylinder. If you have an aluminum master cylinder, you could have some corrosion from the aluminum in there. They also do make these in plastic as well. So you want to check what the fluid looks like. You want to make sure you have fluid, the proper level of fluid, and to see if there's any contamination in there. Once we do a disassembly on this, we'll show that a little bit more. The other thing to look at is back here towards the rear. This solenoid here, this is not on every boat trailer. Some have a manual lockout. This one is automatic. So when this is plugged into your tow vehicle and you go to back it up into its spot, or if you're backing down the boat ramp, this will keep the brakes from actuating. So it's just got most of them just have a single wire. There's some that has 2 wires that will tie in either to your reverse wire on your tow vehicle. Some actually even tie in to the running lights on some of the older trailers if you're using the 5-way flat. But a lot of the newer ones that run a 7-way, they do tie into the reverse wire. So that's really the externals on it. The next thing we're going to do, I'm going to show you step by step how to disassemble it. We're going to start back here at the back, work our way through the middle, end up at the front, then we'll go through all the components. So the first thing you want to do is find this wire. You want to disconnect that so that you don't damage that solenoid. Some of these you can buy just a solenoid. Sometimes you can only find them with the master cylinder. So just going to chase the wire back, see if this one is tucked up in the frame, and it's got a good old Scotch clip. You know, if you've watched our channel, those are my favorite, those Scotch clips. these do serve a purpose. I think they serve a purpose for temporary wiring, so we're going to discard this Scotch clip. If you have sentimental value to your Scotch clip, then by all means keep it, but I'm going to throw ours in the trash. So this is our single wire. When we're going to put that back, we will put this in a heat shrink butt connector. So let's talk about a few of the tools before we move on, because you're going to need a few tools. You may not have. Some of these are specialty tools. And I will tell you this, sometimes you can buy some cheap tools and get away with it. I have a few they're not real critical needs we use around here. I don't buy the best. I don't buy them off the tool truck. I just buy them, the local home improvement store. But sometimes you need to buy a little better grade. On these tools, I'm going to say buy the best that you can afford. Now, you don't need to go out and spend thousands of dollars on them, but just buy you a decent set. And that first thing is going to be snap ring pliers. So if this is the only thing you need snap ring pliers for, you can just buy you one set. I have a kit that's got a couple different options. If you'll notice, like most shops, there's a set missing, so they'll be laying around on a tool table somewhere in a toolbox. They have all different kinds of ends depending on the snap rings. These are for external and internal snap rings, so that is pretty handy for that. Have 90 degrees. I don't know if these are available online. If they are, I'll leave a link or something similar to them. These won't break the bank, but they're a decent set of snap ring pliers. We use them a lot. You will need a brake line wrench. So this is where I would say this is a Craftsman. Now this is an older Craftsman. These are probably 15 plus years old. Maybe not quite that old, maybe 10 years old. But just buy you a decent line wrench set. Usually you will have to buy a set, not just one. And that's something pretty handy to have in place. And I'll explain to you the reason for that here shortly. Maybe a pair of cutters. I like to use, I have this old tapered punch. It was a longer punch that has been cut down. I'll show you what I use that for. And just a decent hammer. This is something we all have around. This is something I'm gonna not recommend on anything brake line related unless they've been used before. If this has been used previously to get the brake line off, you're likely gonna have to use it again to get the brake line off again. But what I am gonna recommend, if you have used this or somebody else has used this on your brake line, once you remove it, if you have the capability, reflare that end, put a new brake line nut, reflare it, or replace the line if you can, just so you can make sure it's tight. The problem with these are, when you use these, if you crush it down too tight, you can deform the nut and it's not gonna get a good seal and your brakes are not gonna work properly. So this is last case resort. If I'm using these, it means we're intending to get that off at all costs. We're going to destroy it, and we're either going to replace the whole line, or if we've got enough length, we're going to re-double flare that line, put a new nut on it, and make it look brand new. So the first thing we're going to do today is get us a drip pan in case this does have some brake fluid in it. And to my knowledge, this is the original brake fluid in there. There's a lot of debate on when to change your brake fluid. I've seen anywhere from 2 to 5 to even 19, 20 years. So I like changing mine every 2 to 3 years just to make sure it's clean, flush it out, and to re-bleed it. So we're going to take the brake line nut out of the solenoid. And again, if there's been vice grips on here, you may have a struggle. This one's going to do us good. And you notice that line wrench, it gets pretty much all the way around the nut. It just helps keep from stripping it out. It's hard to work with the camera right up against it, but I'll stick my tongue out, we'll be good. It does have brake fluid in it. I'd recommend using some hand protection, some latex or nitrile gloves. I'm not going to today. I'm gonna save some money. I'm just gonna wash my hands at the end of the video. But I'd recommend some gloves. It's just for what I'm doing for the camera. I'm not gonna wear them today. So we've got the solenoid disconnected, we have the brake line disconnected, and on the A60, the only other thing that holds us in are these two pins here. You have a snap ring on this side, and on my side you have a snap ring as well. It's only necessary to take the snap rings out on one side. We're gonna drive the pins out, and then we're gonna slip this out, see if it will come out. Sometimes if these have a lot of corrosion underneath there, they can be a struggle. This one looks pretty clean. It looks like it's been functioning. So let's pull this first snap ring out. And it has a little washer. Be sure to try to keep stuff like this because that is hard to get. You can't just go buy that anywhere. Snap rings you could. That little washer, you'd have to come up with something. So this is where I like to use my little tapered punch and just, it don't take much. Like I said, this does have some age on it, but this boat and trailer are garage kept when not in use. So that's a pin. That's one thing to inspect. Check for wear, check for corrosion. It does have some wear on it, but as old as this is, this actually looks pretty good. Really not a whole lot of corrosion. The front pin as well, it's about the same. You can clean that up with some steel wool or a little emery cloth. They're probably good to go. So I'm gonna put them in there so we don't lose them. And now we just slide this whole inside unit out. So this is the outer, this is basically the mount for the actuator. All the internals are here. When you go to slide this out, there are some rollers in here. It rolls back and forth when you're depressing and releasing the brakes. So you want to keep up with those to make sure that they don't fall out. It will also have a Teflon pad in there. So we're gonna slide out slowly, see if I can show you everything. So we'll stop right there. So there's the little pad. You can find these. I'll leave a link in the description. So you can see it does have some wear on it and the pad, but again, not horrible. The roller you can take out. And once we get it out, we'll go a little bit more in depth with it. So that is it. That is the actuator. That's in its entirety. Now we are going to disassemble this so we can show you what the inside of it looks like, what parts are replaceable, what to look for as far as wear or damage to see if you can just clean it up, if you need some replacement parts, or if you need to replace it completely. So I'm gonna flip this over, get a better camera angle on it, and we'll dive and dig right into it. So we're gonna pull the front rollers out of this, set them aside. We're gonna flip it upside down. I put the plug back in it just so we don't drip fluid everywhere. I recommend doing this on a bench. For video purposes, I'm gonna do it right here. So we can see the bottom side of the master cylinder here. This is the underside of the master cylinder. Again, this is the solenoid that allows you to back up. So the places you want to immediately look are just the condition. You're gonna look inside the coupler. If it's a really old coupler, I have seen these where the ball has worn completely through, or it's cracked. You can use some lubricant in there to keep it from grinding the ball out and this out. If this is worn out, at that point, it's gonna be a full replacement of the whole component. So I would say start with that. You don't wanna spend a bunch of money back here, then look and decide, hey, it's worn out, I just need a new one. And that is possible depending on how much you go to the lake. On a 19, 20-year-old boat trailer, if you go a lot, it would not be unheard of to have to put a new coupler on it. So inspect all of that. Look to see if you see any corrosion, especially if you go into saltwater applications, and that's where really you're gonna have an issue. Again, this is freshwater only. It's garage kept, so it's not bad. Even still has the purple paint on the spring. You notice this cable here, this is your emergency cable. So if you get, if the boat becomes unattached from the tow vehicle, it pulls this cable and it pushes the master cylinder and locks the brakes up. So that being said, I wanna focus on this little doohickey right here. What this is for, this serves a couple of purposes. But if this cable were to become pulled, or if the master cylinder is just stuck for whatever reason, sometimes when you back into a place, it can become stuck. From the factory, most of these are gonna have a sticker on it, and this one actually does too. We'll move the camera over here in a minute. You're supposed to push this in before you take off with it to make sure you have released the master cylinder. If this emergency brake cable were pulled, this is the release for that. That doesn't necessarily always take the pressure off the brake cable. Sometimes if the brake cable is pulled, it does have to be replaced, and we'll show you what the inside of that looks like here in just a moment. So let's pull around here. I'm going to show you this one actually still does have the sticker on it so that I'm not lying to you. Before use, push up on tab to assure brakes are released. I'm sure everybody always does that before they take off when they're towing adventures. If, however, you have not before, I would recommend going ahead and doing that because you never know, it could be locked and you don't want to smoke your brakes off. So on the A60 coupler, what holds everything together in here are the front and rear pins. This holds the master cylinder in place, and then your front pin holds the shock absorber in place. The shock absorber is important. It's just like on your vehicle. It acts for when you go to pull away, it dampens that pull and keeps you from jerking. So if you notice your coupler has some slop in it, if it's banging around, likely the shock needs to be replaced. Some couplers have a 2-shock system on some of the bigger stuff. The A60 just has 1, but you can get those shocks. I keep those in stock. They do go out. If you see any leaking, and we'll look at that when we pull it out. So to pull this out, really, it's all you do. You just pull. You're gonna have all kinds of crap come out. There's the first roller. So these rollers do go in a certain way. They'll only go in one way. So make sure that you note that. That goes like that. So don't get them backwards. I'll pick that one up tomorrow. So here, I'm gonna flip it over now as you can see it. So this is what it would be like actually in the unit. So this is your shock absorber, which bolts to the front of the master cylinder. This is the plunger rod. That's when you depress the brakes in your vehicle. That pushes that in, actuates your brakes. If you were to become an accident, or if the tow vehicle were to become unattached, this cable literally pulls through this loop that's in the master cylinder, actuates this, and many times it does get stuck and needs to be replaced. In my opinion, if this has been, even if it's accidentally pulled away, a lot of times it's better just to replace it. The downside is, to replace it, you do have to take the complete coupler apart. It just slides off the front. You'll pull your cable out, and then you'll take it out and you'll feed your new one through there in reverse operation through the front. Just pay attention where you pull it out. Put it back on, and that's it. So if your shock is worn out, you can test it by pushing and then pull. So even though it pushes, if it pushes in easy, always check the pull. You want it to work both ways. This one's not bypassing internally. It's doing good. I'd say that shock is perfectly fine. Really, as you can see on this master cylinder, there is little to no corrosion, little to no wear. That tells me two things. It's kept in out of the weather, and it's not used all the time. If any of these components seem to be rusted or corroded, you're going to need to replace them. Underneath this boot here, that's where the plunger goes in. That's where I like to look. As you can see on that one, it's got a little bit of liquid in there. So you have to determine on that whether or not there is a seal in there, so your master cylinder could be leaking. You need to determine that, or if it's just some grease from assembly. So if it is leaking out of there, you're going to need to replace that master cylinder. We're gonna clean this one up. We're going to take a look at it to see if we can determine. I believe this is assembly grease with a little bit of moisture mixed in with it. So I'm going to do that off camera, and we'll tell you what we find out here in a minute. So we cleaned up the master cylinder. We took a better look at it. It is not leaking. That was just some grease from when the plunger was installed from the factory. Had some water in there, so we cleaned all that stuff out. We're going to put a little grease back. You can just use a marine grade grease, or you can use a disc brake caliper grease. This is pretty good for like anything that's going to get wet or nasty. It don't need much. It just needs a little bit. Don't have to put a ton. Just relieve some of the friction in there. Stick that back. Put the rubber boot back on. Now here is where I would say there is some debate, and I'll give you my 2 cents worth in. I don't really think there's a right or wrong reason. I think you argue it both ways. There are some that would say to lubricate this, and some that would say not to lubricate this. I'm going to say if it's pretty clean, there's no corrosion, I don't like to lubricate it. If you do lubricate it, it can cause dirt and crap to stick to it. But if it does have some corrosion on there, you're going to try to clean that up, and you may need to put a little bit. But if you do, I mean, it's just a tiny bit. You're really just there just to try to encapsulate the metal that's there, to keep anything from penetrating that. Don't put a bunch. If you put a big glob of grease, it is going to suck up dirt and road grime, and it could cause it to wear out the rollers or prematurely gunk up. So it's kind of like Easy Lube. You can over grease things. Got to be careful. Another thing I didn't mention, when you go to drain all the fluid out of this as you're flipping it over, try not to get that on your boat paint job. It will help you take the paint off. So if you're looking to repaint that front end, go ahead and dump all the brake fluid all over it. It will help you get there in a hurry. So everything looks good on here, in my opinion. If there's any doubt on this, on the master cylinder, just replace it. just put a new one on there. I mean, they're not cheap, but they're not a ton of money either. And you can look at it either way. You can price all these components. If it has some age to it, you may just want to buy the complete assembly. That's honestly the easier thing to do. You can just slip that dude in, put your 2 pins in, your 1 wire, and put your brake line back up, then bleed it. And speaking of brake bleeding, once we put all this back together, this does have to be bled, but we're not going to cover that today. That's going to be its own video. In the next few weeks, we're going to be doing several things to this boat trailer as far as maintenance, from brake flushing to brake bleeding, looking at our winch straps. We'll even look at the lubrication system. This has the buddy system on it. It is the, let's see what it does have. Yes, it has the trailer buddy system on there. They go through lots of different names. When you look at it, it will look similar to some other product that we'll cover as well. This one still runs 50 weight oil in it. So we're going to take a look at all that. I believe the customer said he does have 1 seal leaking, so we're going to address that. Probably likely do a full service on it. So stay tuned. We'll have several videos covering the boat trailer and all the components, just to make sure yours is in tip-top shape and ready to go to the lake. So let's put this back together. Just be careful with the cable, as I said. Make sure you get it back in there correctly. So as you see, when you go to put that in, push that down, and that allows it to go. And then pull your cable. Don't get it in a bind like I did. If you are having some trouble get the cable fed, sometimes you will have to move this where it comes through on the roller. It can bind in there a little bit. So you may have to hold your tongue just right on that. So the next thing we're going to do is put the rear rollers in, and we're going to get ready to put this thing back together. So when you go to put these rollers in, I like to tilt the master cylinder up. They will only go in one way. I guess if you forced them, you could put them in the wrong way, but there is a little receiver built within that master cylinder, and then as you slide them down, it'll keep them falling out in the floor. So they are lined up there, and that's the only thing. You just kind of got to keep this together as you slip it back into its outer channel. Though one thing that's going to be off, I don't know if you can see inside this hole, I'll backlight it. This front shock mount here, can you tell anything like it's not lined up? Yeah, you can see it's about a half hole right there. Once we get it in place, that's where the punch will come in handy to manipulate that shock in order to get your front pin in. The back one's pretty easy. So carefully flip this back over so you don't lose all your work. And try not to pinch your wire. And just take your time. When you get to about there, we need to remember to put the front rollers in. Again, these are pretty clean. I'm not going to put any lube on them. Just had to hold my tongue right. Then put your little Teflon pad, plastic, whatever it's made out of, put that back in place. And then again, you are going to have to use something to line that shock hole up. We're going to finish sliding it in. And we're going to put this rear pin in first. Okay. Depending on how far off it is, I'm going to get a little screwdriver to get it started. So I'm just going to insert a screwdriver, pull that shock forward enough to get my big punch in there to get it close. And once you get them pushed all the way through, put your washers and your snap ring. And just make sure that you do, if you've never used snap ring pliers before, just make sure that it goes in the indention. You can move it around, look at it, poke on it, That one is good. If there's a bunch of crud down in that ring indentation when you go to pull the snap ring off, just clean it out with a pick or something like that. We're going to put our front on. There you go. So the coupler is reassembled, but that's not where we stop. But for Dave, that's where we're going to stop, because what we have to do on this, we have to bleed the brakes. And what would happen there is you would hook this line back up at the rear and you bleed the brakes. But that's going to be a standalone video. The reason we're not going to hook up today, because we are going to do a full brake flush on this, and we're going to capture the fluid when it comes out so that you can see what it looks like. Then we'll re-explain how to completely evacuate all the air in that. We're going to show a couple of different methods. So actually show 3 different methods, so whichever one of those fits your budget. Give you some options in that, because again, I don't want you to go out and spend a ton of money just to do it. Now if you're somebody that likes to buy gadgets and cool tools and go out, you know, if it makes it easier, great. But if you need to do it on a budget, there are some old school ways around it, like I was trained on as a young person. That's what we're going to do. So be sure to tune in the next several weeks as we cover the brake flush, the brake bleed, the running gear on this, the disc brake system, and whatever else we can find. We're also going to do a corrosion inspection, especially on the axles. A lot of the axles that have a V-bend in them, they are bad about holding moisture in them, and they will rot out. And once that happens, you got to change it. So thanks for tuning in. Keep up the good work on your maintenance. Stay safe, and we will see you down the road.